Today we are learning basketball with Kris Amundson, aka at Kayla Hoops, the co-founder of Swish Theory, diehard Bulls fan. What's Chicago up to? Can't wait to dive in. But how you doing today, Kris?
I'm glad to be back on the microphone. Appreciate it, Ryan, and you've been doing a fantastic job. And yeah, I'm really excited to talk about my favorite and least favorite team in the entire league.
That's how it goes. It's a love hate sometimes with our favorite teams. I knew that too well for a while, but then the Magic got off that treadmill of mediocrity, and now it's all it's all up from here. It's all fun from here until the expectations set in, and then it's back to hate, a love hate. But that's sports for you. So I'm super interested. Before we hit the Bulls and the NBA and just kind of the offseason is this Kawhi situation with the Clippers. I'm sure you've been following, and you bring a little bit of legal perspective to the whole thing. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on kind of just breaking down a little bit what's going on. Obviously, we've seen Pablo's reports, and there's been podcasts talking about all the different possibilities. And there's more details coming out by the day. So, by the time this releases, there could be a whole nother mess of details out. But, at the moment, it sure seems like at the very least, there's a little something fishy going on.
There's no doubt there's something fishy going on. It's a really fascinating perspective. As you said, I'm an attorney, so I do have kind of a background in this type of thing. I mean, the NBA is its own animal for sure. Now, when you're in the legal field, when you're trying to prove something, there are certain statutes or laws or cases that tell you what the standard is in order to prove your case. So the normal rules don't really apply to the NBA. That they use the collective bargaining agreement. That's kind of their rule book of sorts. And it's been really fascinating because a lot of times you really need pretty substantial evidence to prove that, like a situation here where the Clippers, the allegation is that the Clippers were going under the table to pay Kawhi Leonard more money through this aspiration tree planting, fake company, right? The guy's a fraudster who runs the company. He's in a lot of debt. And as you know, Steve Ballmer went on TV and said, "Hey, I got conned by this guy. All I did was make the introduction to Kawhi, and I don't know anything else about it." And the idea that a team would have a team sponsor, have a contract with a player is not uncommon at all in the NBA. It's very, very common. You got the jersey patches by these different teams. You got different affiliates. So it makes total sense to me that a company like Aspiration, I hope I'm saying the name. I can't remember. I've heard it many different ways, but everyone knows what I'm talking about. A team like Aspiration or a company like Aspiration would want to have Kawhi endorse their product or speak for them in exchange for money, right? That's pretty normal. But obviously, what's not normal is, looks more like fraud, right? They're paying him money to do nothing. He's not sponsoring. He hasn't done anything. His contract seemed to say, and I may be speaking out of turn. I haven't read the contract, but I've heard that the contract basically said, you only have to do something unless you disagree with the mission of the company, which is, in legal terms, a pretty ridiculous out. Like, I don't think that would hold up as real consideration to have a valid contract. So it does look really fishy. Now, the CBA, and I've listened to Zach Lowe. I have not read the CBA myself, but Zach Lowe was talking about the CBA. The CBA's requirements for punishing a team are not quite as high as they would be in a court of law. You've heard people say you need more than circumstantial evidence, but you may not. And as you said, Ryan, there is something fishy going on, and Pablo Torre's reporting has made it seem less and less like plausible deniability is going to be an easy out for the Clippers. Now, I at this point, I still feel like it is entirely plausible that the Clippers could have just introduced him to this company and never knew about anything after the fact. It's definitely possible. But with each passing day, it becomes more problematic, and I can understand why other teams in the league would look at the situation and assume or suspect that something fishy is going on. So I don't know how it's going to play out, but I think it is really, really important because you've seen the changes in the CBA recently to kind of punish teams like the Clippers and the Warriors who are just spending money willy-nilly to try and create a competitive balance among these teams. So clearly a very, very, very big issue to the NBA as a whole, and I'm fascinated to see what comes out of it. And it's nice to have some real investigative journalism by Pablo Torre. So I appreciate what he's done on this.
Yeah, hard pressed to find that these days. And I think the key point there that stuck out to me was the circumstantial evidence being sort of all you necessarily need. Like the NBA, Adam Silver, it seems like, is the judge, jury, and executioner for this ordeal, where like he can kind of come up with the punishment as he deems fit, similar to like they did with the Joe Smith situation when this sort of happened before, and the team got fined with a bunch of first round picks. But where my next question is, what's the worst case here? Is it possible that they could actually null and void Kawhi's contract and he become a free agent? Could it get that far that because of all of these other deals, they determined that they signed him, without while circumventing the cap? I know cap circumvention is the big other thing that has to be like checked off for certain punishments, but ultimately it seems like Adam Silver can kind of pick any punishment he wants that he thinks is like both fair in the eyes of the public now that all of this is public knowledge, and also fair relative to what happened before with the Joe Smith case. And I guess you could weigh in other stuff like, does Ballmer, being one of the richest owners in the world, have anything to do with their punishment? Like, will he just like it makes fines not really worth as much, and it makes a question of like, how do you punish this team actually to make it a little more fair for the rest of the teams?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've seen the memes, right, where it's said, hey, the Clippers are being punished by, they have to sign Paul George, back to the team. Or the fact that if they did null and void Kawhi's contract, would that really be a punishment? Or, can they even take the amount of first picks it would require to actually punish the team? It does seem like it is basically in Adam Silver's hands. What's really interesting, though, about this is, and one of the changes that I remember from what Zach Lowe had said, is there's a concept in legal terms called res ipsa loquitur, and it's a Latin term that means the thing speaks for itself. And the example that's always used is, if you're walking down the street and a barrel falls on your head and injures you, barrels don't fall out of the sky absent some sort of negligence, right? Someone had to do something wrong at some point, even if you can't prove who and where and when and how. Something wrong happened and you got injured, right? So we can apply that. We may be able to apply that to this situation, which is Kawhi got paid, somewhere between $28 and $50 million for doing nothing. And it may be that the Clippers knew nothing about it, but there had to be some negligence. So the question is, could they just go in and punish the Clippers? As you mentioned, the status thing. Could they punish the Clippers simply because the Clippers have been involved? They were cleared of an investigation back in 2019 when they initially signed him. And they've been sued ever since, basically. I know Zach Lowe was talking about this. The Clippers have paid Kawhi's contract over and over and over again, it seems like, just through all the legal problems that they've had with everything that's gone on with him. So it's absolutely certain that Adam Silver could bring the hammer down on him, even if they can't prove with circumstantial or more substantial evidence that the Clippers actually did something. If it smells like they did, right? If something happens where it's like, this thing speaks for itself, this could not have happened without some sort of collusion between Aspiration and the Clippers, then we may get that result, even if we can't prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt. So it is a fascinating situation. I don't know what the proper punishment would be. I mean, your first guess would be draft picks, and your second guess would be nullifying the contract. But as we talked about, I don't know if that's really going to be a punishment for them at this point. I guess we'll see how the season goes, and we'll see how far the investigation goes into the season. If the Clippers are really doing well and they look like they're going to be a title contender, then maybe voiding Kawhi's contract, if they do find some wrongdoing, would be appropriate punishment along with draft picks. But we're kind of in new waters here, because with Joe Smith and the Timberwolves, the guys were dumb enough to put it in writing exactly the wrongdoing that they were going to commit, right? It's like taking a video of yourself breaking the law. It's just like, that doesn't exist here. I think even if the Clippers did do something wrong, Ballmer's probably too smart to be involved in that kind of thing where you have a literal smoking gun. But it's really fascinating to see, and I don't know what the result's going to be, but I think we're in uncharted waters in a lot of ways here.
Yeah, and all very interesting perspective there. There's a few other, I guess let's just go with rumors or unconfirmed sources that have floated out about it, that some of the things that it seems like the Clippers have done were rumored to be things that Kawhi asked for with Toronto originally, or at least his team asked for with Toronto. Some very similar things when it came to like no-show deals and just making deals that circumvented the cap that way. And then there was another report that said that was pretty interesting that Steve Ballmer is a 99% owner of the Clippers, and a smaller co-owner who owns 1%. His name is Dennis, and is not only his co-owner, the only co-owner of the Clippers, it's Ballmer's college roommate. And this is from Pablo's second report. And apparently, for instance, another circumstantial evidence example from this case is that, long story short, I believe Kawhi's camp was owed roughly $10 million, and the next day or so, Dennis makes his first investment. The co-owner of the Clippers makes his first investment ever into this aspiration company for just over $10 million, and immediately the Kawhi camp gets paid that $10 million. So it's like, is there one exact transaction from one to another? Maybe not, but maybe there's three that sure imply that, it was, as we're saying, like the circumstantial evidence is right there. So is that enough? Yeah. I think it'll be enough for something. I don't know how much more they'll necessarily need circumstantially to come down on it, but I definitely think they're going to come down pretty hard on this eventually once it all comes out.
Yeah, my thought is, even if they don't punish the Clippers directly here, I do think that regardless of the results of this investigation, there will be significant changes either to the CBA or to the way that companies that want to sponsor players are able to operate. I think the NBA is probably going to demand much more oversight to those transactions than they previously had. And there's probably going to be, whether it's like some sort of committee or some sort of check-in where these things are going to be investigated on a regular basis rather than only when something smells wrong.
Absolutely. So we shall see how that turns out. Will be very interesting if it affects this Kawhi Clippers season, especially because this is one of the best teams Kawhi has actually had in LA. If he's fully healthy, some of the most depth. So in terms of the basketball, we got a pretty good team on the court. So like you said, this might actually feel like more of a punishment, that null and void Kawhi contract come later in the season if the Clippers are doing pretty well. And we'll see if it gets to that. We'll see. I want to shift gears a little bit and ask you a little bit about kind of your background, mostly with Swish Theory itself. What went into finding Swish Theory, building the team, and kind of the goal with starting it and, carrying it on through today and the goals going forward.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation. So it starts with actually me and my friend Laro Golden starting a Bulls podcast, 4 years ago or so. And we wanted to get into Bulls podcasting. We wanted to do a little bit differently. I think we're one of the first people that I had ever seen break down film live in a podcast. So it was meant to be more of a kind of a live. You could watch it live or watch it on YouTube, where we would talk about Bulls games and Bulls players, but try and do so in a way that was educational. So kind of like what you're doing here now with learning basketball. Try and make it a more educational experience rather than just kind of shooting the breeze on the NBA or the team in general. And we did that for quite some time. And then Laro ended up getting hired by SIS, which is like a hoops analytics company. And so it was like February, March in that season. So the podcast got canceled and I was looking for a new partner because I wasn't sure how long Laro was going to be involved in this project. And I actually reached out to my friend Chip Jones, who is a scout and has worked for the Dallas Mavericks in one capacity and other teams as well, to my knowledge. So, we had planned to kind of start the podcast up again with me and Chip. And then it turned out that Laro's opportunity with SIS Hoops ended and he was coming back. So it was going to be all three of us. And then we were just talking about the logistics of it and how it was going to go. And Chip brought up, like, why don't we expand this into like an actual platform for not just our podcast or our analysis and content, but everybody. We'd seen kind of the death of the Stepien mostly because all their writers got hired by FEA teams.
Right.
It's the best way, for that company to, or that kind of project to go away. And obviously, I'd been inspired earlier on by Grantland, back when it was under ESPN. So it seemed like there was kind of a void in the NBA industry for that type of content, where it was out of the box content. It wasn't paid. It wasn't driven by clicks or sensationalism. It was just, I want to read and learn more about basketball. I want to do deep dives on players. I want to really see, what draft Twitter has to say about this prospect or that prospect. And so Chip brought in Matt and Ross, friends of his. Ross is a Bulls fan as well. Actually, I knew him before and interacted with him many times. He's very good on the back end of things, building websites and maintaining social media and that kind of stuff. And then Matt actually was one of the editors of the Stepien. So we brought them in, and Laro, obviously, if you don't know his background, he's a youth basketball coach, very, very good, high level, and just one of the greatest guys you'll meet. And then I'm just some dumb lawyer. So it was us five that decided to do this. And so we tested some concepts. We came up, we were pitching around names. I ended up thinking up the name Swish Theory, and it tested well with people that we respected kind of around the league and around kind of the NBA Twitter sphere, and started it. And, at this point we've got 30 or 40 contributors. Now it's not like it's not a paid platform. It doesn't have ads. It doesn't do anything like that. It's just a platform to showcase the work of people who really just love basketball and want to analyze it at a deep level, and not some surface or, kind of fan brain or sensationalism thing. It's just pure love of basketball. And I think it's been a wild success. Have I made any money on it? No, I probably lost a lot of money on it at this point, but I've really enjoyed being able to be part of the project. I wish I could spend more time on the project. Unfortunately, I have a full-time job. If anyone wants to finance Swish Theory for me, I would love, I'd be very interested in that, to do this on a more full-time basis. But, as of now, it's kind of a passion project for me and Chip, Laro, Matt, and Ross, and everybody else who's joined us, including you, Ryan, that has joined us in Swish Theory. We just benefit greatly as basketball junkies and sickos from people who really enjoy things, and we get to gain perspectives from people all across the league, from all walks of life and perspectives. And it just has made me appreciate basketball and the art of it so much more than I did before. So it's been a fantastic thing, and I hope it continues for many, many years.
Absolutely. Shout out to the whole Swish Theory team. It's an awesome story. I totally second everything you said. It's just cool being a part of a platform with so many great basketball minds, and mostly just being able to bounce ideas off of each other and learn from each other. That's a big part of this podcast, is kind of realizing that you don't know everything, and that you want to get out there and learn from all the different perspectives that you can, because you just might be totally missing something or totally not see something due to a bias or whatever it might be. And I think understanding everyone's perspective and analysis helps kind of grow and mold your own. So, doing that with other people that put a lot of time and effort into that process, scouting wise, evaluation wise, is one of the best ways to learn. And, that's definitely point of the podcast here as well, is to kind of share that platform, extend that platform, the multiverse of the Swish Theory, just hopping worlds to, promote it, kind of co-promote everybody's work, and make sure, we get as many eyeballs as possible in the basketball world on everybody's work. Because, everybody at Swish Theory puts in a lot of time into these articles too, and the videos. It's not just a quick, like you're saying, it's not just a one-off clickbait article that somebody came up with over the weekend because of a topic. Most of these articles have months of work and writing and clips and film tracking and all this stuff that go into it, just for one chart or one article. So it's cool when it comes together for the big project. So
you can tell I've never, and you can speak to this, Ryan, no one at Swish Theory has ever assigned someone a project. No one said, you need to get this done, you need to write about this, you need to write about that. It's all what you want to write about, what you care about, and you can tell by the work product. That's the only standard we have, is high quality work, and you can tell by the work that's done that yeah, you've oftentimes spent months. My first article I wrote for 6 months about, and it was about Alex Caruso, but mostly it was about how um, how cognitive athleticism impacts defense, impacts defensive playmaking with Alex Caruso and actually Nikola Jokic as examples of that. And that I thought it was going to be take me a week to write it. I spent 6 months on it because I just kept going deeper and deeper into what I wanted to talk about. And everyone at Swish Theory kind of has that same mentality about it doesn't matter how long it takes. It doesn't matter what it's about. It just matters, the quality of work that you put into it. And I think it's been, I think at minimum, we've built a reputation for if we post something on Swish Theory, it's going to be quality work.
Yeah, I mean that's a guarantee, no doubt, and it's just awesome being a part of this group, and we're gonna keep going. We'll be repping. I know I'll be repping Swish Theory at Magic Games this year with the credentials and some high school events in the past as well, doing the same. So we stay grinding there, and we'll just keep expanding. And shifting to the actual NBA here, we got your Bulls, the Chicago Bulls, once again. I don't know. They're going for the same thing again. Are the same old goal as every year. They're fighting for the 7th seed, and that's the goal, right?
They're buying more real estate on Mediocrity Island every year. They're just they own the whole land at this point. Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
They got it. So glass half full for the Bulls here. We're coming off a couple days off of the Josh Giddey new contract. I believe it was $100 million, 4 years exactly. Yep. First instant reactions to that off the top.
Yeah, so for a glass half full perspective on the team and the Giddey contract, right? So the Bulls now basically own all of their own first round draft picks going forward, which is positive because they've been out for the Vucevic trade and the DeRozan trade to acquire those players in the first place. They've been out first round picks to your team, the Magic. Congratulations on drafting Franz Wagner.
Oh, my favorite part of our podcast is the Franz Vooch trade. Anyway.
Yeah, and Wendell Carter, who's one of my personal favorites, a very underrated player. So yeah, I think one of the reasons that the Magic got out of mediocrity is thanks to the Bulls' intent to stay there. So for Josh Giddey, he's an interesting player. He's clearly a very talented player. Watching him has been one of the most confusing experiences of my life. Because he's not necessarily super athletic. He's not super quick. He's not some really flashy passer. He does have some out of bounds passes that are pretty on point, but he's not like a White Chocolate or Ricky Rubio or he's not that kind of a passer. He's a much more kind of basic passer. And he's not a guy who creates advantages off the dribble. And so sometimes even though he's tall and he can rebound and run the floor really well, he gets targeted on defense. His shooting is really iffy, and even if he's shooting well, which he actually did shoot a lot better this last year, the opposing defenses don't respect him enough for it to ultimately warp the floor in the Bulls' favor. So he's a really funny player to watch because you look at him, you're like, he's not impressive to watch, and then you look at the box score and you're like, he's got 20 points, 10 assists and 8 rebounds. Like, how did he do that? He's such a confusing player. And he's still such a young guy. So I think what the Bulls intend here is to have Josh Giddey long-term to kind of bet on his growth. And he has grown as a player this last year. There's been some ups and downs. But I'm trying to keep a positive. I want him to succeed. I think the worry that I have for the Bulls tying themselves to Josh Giddey for the next 4 years is that the Bulls cannot be better than Josh Giddey is. Like he is their ceiling because of his limitations on the floor. He has to have the ball in his hands. He's not really an off-ball player at all. It's almost not. It's like you're not really worth having him on the floor if he's not the one generating the offense. So it's a difficult prospect because if you want to be the best team, he has to be kind of your lead ball handler. He's got to be there. And so a lot of your offense has to flow through him and has to rely on him improving those weaknesses. I think he can improve those weaknesses. I think he can become a better shooter. I think he can become a better defender. I think he can become more consistent overall. He's a young guy, right? He's only 22. He's got time. I know he's been in the league over 4 years now, but he's got a lot of time. And the Bulls are giving it to him. They're giving him the runway to succeed. So you want to see that with a team and a young player where they give them the room to succeed, especially with ball handlers. They take a little bit longer to develop. But yeah, I think the glass half empty take is that he defines your ceiling. Like if you were to bring in, for example, like a Giannis onto the team to join him, I think it would immediately diminish Giddey's impact on the floor. Because he kind of has to have the ball in his hand. So you can't really pair him with a superstar because pairing him with a superstar diminishes his ability. I think that's what the Thunder realized when Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams and Chet, they're all getting a lot better. They kind of realized that Giddey wouldn't work with that team. He wasn't being maximized on that team anymore because of those limitations, and he kind of needed to be on his own path in order to maximize his strengths as a basketball player. So the Bulls are happy to give it to him. Whether that's a prudent strategy is up for the debate. But I think Josh Giddey, by signing this deal, is in the best position for his own personal development and growth that he can be in the next 4 years.
Yeah, and so someone's got to pay Josh Giddey, and I don't hate the deal. Like glass half full. You mentioned a ton of positives there, like his age, the getting him on this deal now. There's a chance that the potential will develop and that deal will be more than worth it down the line if something else clicks. And you hit on all the box score stuff. I mean, after the LaVine trade, to continue the positive Bulls momentum right now, the Bulls were 18-15 after the Zach LaVine trade, 16th on both offense and defense, really fine on that line of 500, but just middling it, and
just right where they want to be.
Right where they want to be. Giddey got his numbers. I mean, 20 points, 8 assists to 3 turnovers, 9.5 boards. So basically 20, 10, and 8 over the last 30 games of the season with very few turnovers. 1.5 steals, 50, 45, and 80 shooting, 14 shots, 5 threes, 5 free throws. Like he's getting up shots, he's hitting them. And, he's not considered a 3-point shooter to your point, but like at least had a stretch there where he hit some. So you would think maybe that's in there a little bit. But I think the major point is it's like it doesn't seem like his game is all that scalable to where you throw him on the Thunder. You can't necessarily scale his role down like you're saying. He needs the ball. He needs to create. And he is a great passer and transition ball mover, pace pusher when it comes to that. And he has good feel for the game when it comes to the timing and just running the offense. But I think the ultimate point that you're making is like he really is kind of the ceiling capper. And I think Vucevic is kind of right there with him. And the Bulls, it kind of feels like the Bulls are just, those are their win now vets. Like they have decided we're gonna like compete with Giddey and Vucevic and I guess Kobe White while we develop these other guys around them and see what we have. And that's kind of the framework of the offense. And I might have it slightly wrong there, but that seems like the pecking order of the bucket getters, the scorers. And to me, you have a few like key pieces. Ayo Dosunmu, Matas Buzelis, Noah Essengue. I really like Noah's fit. We'll see Patrick Williams. I got to give him a shout if there's anything left there. I don't know if you're totally out on Patrick Williams at this point, but I actually really like Essengue and Buzelis as like the core going forward for this team. 2 wiry downhill forwards, and in theory, the veterans provide a little bit of spacing around them. So I do kind of see the fit between the offensive-minded veterans that we're going to pay a lot to run the offense and keep us competitive every night and try to be entertaining that way. And then the athletic, wiry young forwards in between who are going to develop and see what we got. A big switch. They traded out Lonzo Ball, brought in Isaac Okoro, and they also brought in some random veterans. Zach Collins, Kevin Huerter, Trey Jones is here, Jalen Smith. So a little mismatch of everything. So they have some talent. I do like a couple of the young pieces. I really liked the Essengue fit, given the fact that they were kind of in this situation already. They have Vucevic next to him to be kind of a floor spacer, drop defender. They have Giddey to maybe set him up in transition, where Essengue could be a transition killer and a play finisher. They have Kobe White shooting and scoring off of it. Like I do like Essengue's potential already, and that was one of my the fits I actually liked in the draft compared to most. What has been kind of the reaction to that Essengue pick, and what are your thoughts on kind of the future? Like who?
It's a good question, Ryan. So I would say I really I have a lot of questions about the Bulls' strategy for the future going forward, but I do think that their current team as constructed is a team that should, like, it would not surprise me if the Bulls, win between 35 and 42, 43 wins this year. I think they've got, as you mentioned a lot of good players. There's a lot of good players like fifth to eighth men on in a kind of your random NBA team. The entire team is fifth to eighth men. So.
Right.
Kobe grows every year. He's an awesome shooting guard. I think if we hadn't had Levine, I'd probably have some higher expectations for him. But I kind of see him as like a Levine 2.0 at best, where he tries really hard on defense. He's an awesome guy. He's gotten to be a better scorer every year. He's gotten to be a better ball handler and passer every year. Just a really fun guy to have around. I think his contract right now is making like under $13 million a year is a steal. But the Bulls are about to pay him. They're going to need to pay him in free agency this next year. And based on what some other shooting guards have gotten, a year or two ago, but also what we're seeing with shooting guards recently, where they're definitely being undervalued. I'm really curious to see what his next contract or what the market for him looks like this upcoming summer. I also liked the Noah Essengue pick. I was kind of also on, if CMB hadn't been picked up, I also would have been kind of on him. But I agree. I think him and Modest Buzelis are a pretty good fit going forward. I may be the last person on Patrick Williams Island at this point. And my belief has always been that he has the tools to be a really good 3-and-D wing. And I think he's proven at different points during his first 5 years that he's a highly efficient shooter. He doesn't shoot quite nearly as much as you'd like him to really be effective, but he's also really, really good at defending big forwards like Giannis and LeBron and Kawhi and all those. So he's definitely got potential. He had a down year in the shooting department, and I think the big issue with him is his dribbling, is his ball handling. I think it impacts basically everything about his game. He can't get to the rim as much. He can't draw fouls as much. He's not aggressive all the time. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that he'll dribble the ball off his knee or off his foot when he tries to dribble. I think if he really puts in the time to work on his ball handling and gets better at that, I think that'll unlock a lot of things for him. I think the shooting numbers, I'm not really worried about those from a distance standpoint. I think those will come back. But his 2-point percentage, his percentage of the rim has been dropping pretty steadily every year. I think it relates to a lot of that. So I don't know what his future is going to be on the Bulls. I think he's still a productive player. I thought his contract at the time that they signed it was fair value for what he'd shown if he had kept kind of on that trajectory. But he's been kind of stagnant in a lot of ways over the first 5 years. And I can understand why Bulls fans are frustrated with him. I totally get it. I also am very frustrated because I think he can do a lot more and he just hasn't shown it on a consistent basis, which is, if a player's just not good, they're not really frustrating. You're just like, well, they're just not good. Like you're kind of agnostic about it. With Patrick, he drives a lot of division because I think people think he should be better than he's shown. They see more potential than he's shown, and that's kind of why he's more divisive. I think Modest is kind of the major reason to have hope for the Bulls. I think he showed a lot in the second half of last year, and I think he's going to be given more keys to the offense going forward. And I think he's at a good spot between Vucevic is a great passer, Giddey's a great passer, Kobe's a willing passer. So I think he's in a situation where he's going to be set up for success as far as his, set up for that kind of continual growth. So I'm really excited to see what he has this year. But, going back to your kind of original point, Ryan, they've got a lot of decent players. They've got all their draft picks. So I think if a really smart, creative executive or if AK, decides to be that, I think you can do a lot with the Bulls. I think the Bulls would have a really bright future. I just don't have a lot of faith based on the track record of them doing that. I think Brian Windhorst said it recently on his podcast. The Bulls are set to have like $80 million in cap space next summer, and no one is talking about it because no one finds the Bulls to be strategic. I think those are his words. And I think it's a pretty succinct summary of where the Bulls are at. I think they've got a really solid kind of 7 to 10 play-in, fringe playoff team, but I don't see their ceiling being much higher. you mentioned Giddey's production going down the stretch. I think that's really positive. That's really encouraging. But you also saw with their playing game versus Miami, all of the flaws exposed on the biggest stage. Miami relentlessly attacked him on defense in the first quarter, completely ignored him, and just doubled Kobe White for the first quarter. And by the end of the first quarter, they were down. I mean, the game was basically over before halftime in that playing game. And I think a lot of it has to do with the limitations that the team shows you in a playoff setting. If they can run in transition, they're so much better of a team. But the playoff is about nitty gritty half court possessions, and the Bulls really don't have anybody that can take advantage of that. I do think that one positive thing to be hopeful for in the half court setting would be, I think Giddey's free throw attempts were much higher. He was drawing fouls at a much higher rate towards the end of the year. So I think if that can continue, if he can draw 4, 5, 6 fouls a game, that's really going to help. And I think Matas and Noah are both good at that. They're very aggressive around the rim. So if this team can start getting the easy points through free throws, just kind of getting basic shots through shot creation, I think they can have more success. But there's going to have to be a lot of internal development with the Bulls this year in order for that to happen. I think that's kind of what they're relying on, and they really don't have a whole lot of other options this year to really improve. So I expect them to be pretty good, because I mean, if a player goes down for injury, there's a player almost identical to that player behind them in the lineup. Like they're not going to lose a whole lot by going from Noah Essengue to Patrick Williams, or from Isaac Okoro to Ayo Dosunmu. There's a lot of overlap here. I think they've got a pretty good blueprint for having a successful regular season. It's the postseason that I think I just have a lot of questions and not really any answers at this point.
Yeah, I think that sums it up. Like, this team is built to compete in the regular season and win games and be a competitive offense that has competitive players, rotation level players at every position, that depth. Like, a lot of these advantages that this team has will be advantages in the regular season, and I do think some of them come with some deficits in the playoffs. Like Giddey and Vucevic having two kind of non-defenders in my eyes out there is just a recipe for disaster come playoff time over a playoff series, to your point, like against the Heat, or if anyone wants to double either of them. It's just tough to have two non-shooters or non-defenders in your lineup anywhere, and I kind of think that can kind of carry over and be the case for these guys sometimes. But they've kind of both flashed it enough where you hope that the 3-point can develop there. But I think Buzelis and Essengue are getting downhill to what you're saying, drawing fouls. Building out of that is where I'm most interested with this team, of what can these two pieces be? How dynamic, even on the ball, can they be penetrating the paint? Or are they kind of regulated to play finishers off of Giddey, off of Vucevic, cutting to the rim? And, with Patrick Williams and Ayo Dosunmu, I think they're both at least good, positive defenders, if not better, if not, very promising defenders. So I definitely think there's something there. I'm captain of the Pat Will fan club. I haven't sold all of my stock yet. We're sitting on the island there. We're just waiting. Us and us and Tom Hanks are the only ones left on the island here for Pat Will Island. But it'll happen. Maybe it'll happen like Aaron Gordon. You get traded off the team from Vucevic, you get set up, you get to play with Jokic or something, and you get all the dunks and defense, and the threes all magically figure out. But I really loved his he clearly has NBA athleticism. He has incredible hands, incredible reaction, incredible anticipation. I totally understand what is frustrating as a fan, because he will show flashes of an incredible defensive play. Like, how the heck did he just turn around? I think his rookie year, he turned around and pinned a shot on the backboard against maybe DeAndre Ayton or I think it was Ayton, but
he basically caught it. He basically blocked him and took it out of his hands with one hand and brought it down. It was
just insane.
Kind of what Giannis did. I think, didn't Giannis do that to Ayton, or was it Ayton to Giannis in the finals? It was basically the exact same play.
Exactly. Giannis.
So he does that stuff, or he'll guard
He'll
Giannis
it
amazingly, and then the next time it's you forget he's on the floor. The next game it's tough. Yeah.
And
It's
that's
hurt
the
my heart.
NBA. Consistency is a big part of the NBA, and it's a lot to ask guys to be consistent every night. It's really only true superstars that can even get close to that every night production. But at the very least, you want you want guys to figure out how to be consistent within their own roles and just show up reliably at
Yeah.
what they do. Like, do what you do best, and instead of just picking your spots like that. But we still got hope. So. With
Last
the
word,
Bulls,
actually.
yeah.
Last word on it is Dosunmu, actually, because you brought him up a couple times. I think he's really underrated still. He can do a little bit of everything, and I think he really is a lot better on defense than some of the numbers, which the numbers this year kind of showed him as being a very poor defender. He's a very good. He reminds me of Alex Caruso in a lot of ways. He's long and wiry, very smart, and he's really good at getting around screens. He's very. If there's a guy that's going to reach his potential in the NBA, like he's just a guy who's whatever his potential is, he's going to reach it. And I would like to keep him long term. I think he's a two-way player, a quality two-way player, and the Bulls don't have a lot of those guys. I think they should keep him around.
I'm with you.
Very crowded backcourt, but I think he's worth keeping around for sure.
Yeah, I mean, even as like a rookie, he was a high impact defender. I think that is a trait he carries, and I mentioned him off the top. Kobe White, Ayo, Matas, Noah, and Pat Will. I kind of like a couple of the guys there. Like, I can get behind that core if we let them build out. But it's a lot of defense, and all the offense is in these vets. So I'm interested. I'm with you. I do think they will compete, play-in level again. Is that the best thing for the Bulls? Who the heck knows? But that's what they're going to do this year. Do you see any scenario where they kind of blow it up a little bit this year? Whether it's Vucevic or Giddey or anything like that?
I don't know. I mean, they've had so many chances to do so. And even when they finally sold on Zach LaVine and DeMar and Caruso, they didn't get any draft capital back for them. Like they didn't do what you're supposed to do in a rebuild, which is maximize the amount of assets. Give yourselves as many chances at many darts on the dartboard as possible. They just don't operate that way. That's just not their philosophy. I personally think their philosophy is very, very flawed because they're not diversifying what they can do. They're putting all their eggs into very few baskets. I just don't think that's a sustainable recipe for success. I mean, you see what the Thunder are doing. They basically did exactly what I'm advocating for, which is just give yourself as many chances as possible. Focus on developing players. Focus on, anytime you trade a player, you get multiple assets back. You get multiple chances. And I think this Thunder have built themselves a sustained model of success that I think the Bulls should have followed and should follow and can follow anytime they want, but they just don't do so. So to answer your question, I don't have any faith that they're going to. I absolutely think that they should at some point. I would not mind them. Like if Giddey had taken this qualifying offer, I would not have minded because I think it would have helped the Bulls pick a real direction after this year. But this is where we are. They kind of want to be. They're looking more for like Pacers light, where they're kind of always kind of in the mix. But the Pacers, who just went to the finals, by the way, they also had superstars, and I just don't see any on this roster yet. I think Matas has probably the best chance to become a Franz Wagner-like player in that kind of a mold. Maybe your number two. Maybe he has a number one. I'm not sure if his ball creation skills are quite there, but he really impressed me. I think Noah Essengue, I think he's going to be a really impact defender. I think he's going to be a terror on the defensive end. He's really long. He's very smart. He has good positioning. He can draw fouls. He's very, very raw offensively. Very, very raw, but he's also very, very young. So I think it's a good base to build on, but you still need stars. Stars run the league. The Bulls need to give themselves chances at stars, and they don't have one on the roster yet. And I'm not sure that they're going to with anybody that's still around. So the 2026 draft class is going to be phenomenal to find a franchise-changing player, and I think it's folly for the Bulls not to try and maximize their chances of doing that. Like, for example, trading the number 12 pick to New Orleans for their 2026 unprotected pick, I think was a huge mistake. Like, it's just like gold being given to you. But I don't run the team. I'm just a commentator. But I do think the Bulls can have a great future. Whether or not they're going to take advantage of it and grab the bull by the horns, to use a pun, I don't have faith in it yet. But I really hope I'm wrong.
That draft is a big what if, not just for what New Orleans gave up, but really how many teams said no to that offer, because
I can't believe it.
Has to be 6 or 7 teams, and that goes to show you that these teams all value the 6th through 12th prospect or 15th prospect this year more so than that pick next year that could easily be top 4. And I feel like it's just a prisoner of the moment type of logic. Like, I feel like it's overvaluing today's asset more than the future one, even though the future one is like screaming that it's going to be a better quality type of player, when you're just because the top 4 next year is so loaded, and there's a pretty good chance that you have some good odds there. I'm with you though. I like Essengue also for his potential. I think he's right there for his upside as your potential star, but Buzelis as well. Those are the two. Essengue, you hit on it. Like, the defense is really impressive. Like, he's not. We're not going to comp him to Giannis or even Pascal Siakam, but those are the kind of the wiry player archetypes that you're hoping for. Like this incredible ace, versatile, mobile defender that's everywhere, a downhill force in transition, and then has that light footwork and strong play finishing skills. And obviously, Giannis and Siakam have really developed on the ball as well.
Yeah. They're also very raw as prospects.
They were
raw.
They were. So that's kind of what you're hoping for, I guess. Best case, for that sort of potential wise. But I think there is something there. I know Roshan Patluri put out some great work covering Noah on the Swish Theory site as well. You can read some of his work there to read more about his upside. But yeah, I mean, as is, the Bulls want to compete. They have a couple players. I'm with you, though. Like, I do think, looking at this roster, I would rather take a chance in next year's lottery and continue to star hunt. Like, imagine getting a Darren Peterson with this group of, like, dynamic forwards. Like, you're set. You're set. Anyone would be, but
Darren, Matas, and Noah, I think I think that's a really awesome foundation to start with.
You got a real core.
They need that guy.
And like you said, the 7 through 10 on this team is set 3 times over. It's really just that top 2 or 3 where you just really need a few stars to round out this rotation. So that brings us to the last question here. Little fun off-season topic. We're just going to run through our 5 most confusing NBA teams. We're looking at these rosters. We're looking at the decisions this summer. We're looking at their future, whatever it may be. Maybe it's good confusing. Maybe it's bad. We just have questions. We're not exactly sure. It can be in any order. Who is one of your most confusing teams? I'll let you go first here.
I've got a few. I'm really concerned with Milwaukee. I understand what they're trying to do, but I feel like them and the Boston Celtics are in a similar place, but I think the Boston Celtics know that they're in that place, and I think the Milwaukee Bucks don't know that they're in that place, which is they've got some stars on their team, and then they've got like a big drop off in NBA quality talent. And we'll see what happens, but I'm really worried about the Bucks because yes, they did replace Brook Lopez with Miles Turner. Let's say Miles Turner is 20% better than Brook Lopez. That's great, but that's not going to change your fortunes much. And you just lost Damian Lillard, and you replaced him with Cole Anthony, right?
Hey.
And some other players. I'm really worried about them. Like, I could see them finishing 5th or 6th, and I could also see them finishing 12th, and neither would really surprise me. So I would start with them. There's a lot of confusing teams this year, though. It's going to be. There's a lot to choose from on this list.
You're not wrong. This is a good one right off the top, because really after, like you said, like after Giannis, if he goes down at all, like what is this team running? What are we looking at here? Like, is there any semblance of a system or a scheme? A lot of Cole, Miles Turner pick and pops come to mind. Like, I don't know what else they even could go with. Some Kyle Kuzma ISOs. Like, it could get a little ugly, a little quick here in Milwaukee, but I do kind of see the upside to at least. No, I'm with you. I mean, it's confusing. It's a little top heavy. I do like the fit of kind of what you said, just swapping out Miles Turner as a newer, younger Brook Lopez who does a lot of similar things and should be a great 4-5 pairing fit with Giannis, proven model. But how is the rest gonna look? Like, their next best players are 2 more forwards, Kuzma and Bobby Portis, I believe, off the bench. Like they're, it's just a weird fit. So someone's going to pop out for this team. Someone's going to get minutes that we don't see coming, like a guard or a wing that just starts hitting all their threes. But, other than that, very confusing team. I'm with you.
Yeah.
I have Chicago on my list. We've already talked about them. They're, the Chicago, they're always a little confusing. We to your point, we know what they're doing. They're chasing mediocrity, but why, I guess, is my question. Why? Why are they doing what they're doing? That's my question. But the next one, I'm going to go with, let's see, the Brooklyn Nets, mostly for the draft class. We kind of know they're not going to be the best team next year. They're going to be experimenting. I'm just confused by the draft class. It just felt like a lot of the same skill set over and over. So I want to see how it looks on the court, like upside wise, best case scenario wise. I'm hoping that it becomes like a contagious play style. All of these ball handlers, there's a lot of ball movement, and they're so fun and fast to play that it becomes a destination to play with. That's like the best I can think of. But otherwise, just a little confusing between all these ball handlers as rookies.
Yeah, and I mean, they clearly want to put the ball in these other people, all these draft picks' hands, but they've also got Cam Thomas, who just got the qualifying offer. I'm really worried about Cam Thomas's decision because I don't think that this is going to make him money, because I don't think he's going to be able to have the featured time needed to show an NBA team, why he should be, why he should be paid on his next contract, and why he should be featured more. I don't think he's going to get the opportunity that he really needs to showcase. I think Jonathan Kuminga actually, and the Warriors, is in a similar position where, I think if Josh Giddey, for example, had taken a qualifying offer, I think it probably could have benefited him, because he's going to be featured no matter what. And so all he has to do is just play out his contract. The Bulls are giving him time. But with Kuminga and Thomas, they're in a situation where their team could easily just marginalize them and completely damage their ability to get money on the open market next season. So I'm really curious how that goes. But, I do think, what the Nets are doing from a 50,000 foot perspective, but what they're going to do on the floor is really interesting. And I'm interested to see how it works out this year, because they got a lot of weird stuff going on, and weird stuff always makes for fun basketball viewing experience.
Yeah, and on that draft class, I do individually like some of the picks. I think their first pick, Yegor Demin, is what threw me off the most, and then every pick after that felt like a little too similar to that first pick. Is really where the confusion comes from. If they had just taken like Kaman Maluach with that first pick and still had the rest of the draft class, I think we'd all be coming away with like, oh, that's a pretty strong class. You got a lottery pick, you got a couple guards, a couple of swings on Danny Wolf and Nolan Traore. There's some high end talent there, but just because of like asking too many rookies to orchestrate your entire offense, it just feels like a disaster waiting to happen. But I'm still excited to see it play out, because it's basketball, and who knows, maybe. We'll see if, to your point, Cam Thomas might not get as many touches. They traded for Michael Porter Jr. They have all these ball handlers now. Who knows if he will be as high in the offensive pecking order. And to your point, like, he's not going to be featured as the guy like Josh Giddey. Like, him and Kuminga will be fighting for minutes on teams that might not be interested in playing through them. They're definitely not interested in like boosting their stock just for the sake of doing so. So it'll be interesting for sure. I'm gonna go with your next team here. What's your next most confusing team?
So we got Milwaukee, we got Chicago, we got Brooklyn. I would say it's between a couple. I'm kind of forced to pick Sacramento, just because there's just been. It's been so disappointing. Like, you just finally felt like they were breaking out of the mold and having all these things. And then they traded Tyrese, and then Aaron Fox, goes away. So they've got Sabonis. They got some good players. They basically have tried to become Bulls West, which is, it's a bold strategy.
It's a choice.
Bold strategy to try and be Bulls West. If they want to continue being Bulls West, we'd love to take Sabonis off their hands in exchange for Vucevic if they want to do that. But I just don't know where they're going with this. Like, I don't see the upside potential anymore, and I did like 2 years ago. So it's been really weird to see them kind of fall from grace, and I'm really curious to see what happens. They've got some good players. I think Keegan Murray, could be really valuable on another team if they try and go a different direction. They're trying to get Jonathan Kuminga, or they've been reported to do that. But I just don't know. I still know where they're going I like a lot of their players. I like Levine. I like DeRozan. I like Monk. I like Keegan Murray. I like all those guys. Sabonis, but they're kind of like this island of misfit toys that the Bulls have been the last few years, and I just don't see where they're going to go with it. But tell me if I'm wrong.
No, that's it right there. I mean, they'll always have the Fox Steph first round series, epic playoff back and forth between Darren Fox and Steph Curry. That was an all time moment. It felt like kind of they peaked at that moment. The Kings, the feel good Kings teams, and it's kind of just been treading water since then. I'm with you though. I like them individually, but they're a little confusing as a team. I do kind of think they are a prime target with the new GM Scott Perry heading president of basketball operations, whichever head title he's got over there. I do think that new front office in place, all these new trades, no one is really tied down as the key guy. I think they're a prime target for a team that will blow it up and make some trades this summer where a lot of those guys could be available. And there's plenty of good players there, if anything, who are probably undervalued right now with their skill sets because of the team they're on. Like they're probably easier to acquire than they normally would, like even down to Levine and Sabonis. But I'll pick my favorite here, confusing team. I could go Memphis, I could go New Orleans, I could go Toronto. I think those are the confusing teams I have left here. Memphis just has to kind of pick a direction with their two stars. Toronto, I like the individual players. I don't really love the fit of these players. These a lot of power forwards in my mind, that guys that are best at power forward with the ball in their hand, getting downhill and not much shooting. So that's confusing. But I'm gonna go New Orleans because I just don't know what the heck they're doing. I don't know what direction they're going. It seems like they're trying to go two timelines, but I'm not sure which one they're really doing all that well. I guess I think they're rebuilding better than they are building, if that makes sense. But they're all in on Derek Queen. They're in terms of the future, it feels like they make a huge bet on him, but they just have so much talent around him. They're surrounding Zion with win now talent and young guys. I just don't know what they're doing, what the direction they're going for. There's a lot of questions there.
They're doing the rare strategy of no timelines. Actually, they're giving away their draft picks. Their best star, Zion, is consistently injured. He's never played enough games to really matter in a season. It's really sad because Zion has so much talent. They've got all this talent around him. DeJounte Murray's out with an Achilles. They've got stuff, but they're just not. It just seems like it's not organized. It's not going a direction. It's just this kind of asteroid floating in space. It's like there's potential there, right? They got a lot of. It's a big asteroid. They could hit something, but there's no direction with it. I think they're kind of doing the no timelines thing, and it is concerning. Which it baffles me that they gave away their pick next year, because I think it's wild. I think it's one of the most valuable picks in the NBA as a trade asset, and just it could be a Darren Peterson and to Derek Queen. I hope he's awesome. My friend Laro is really high on Derek Queen, but I don't know if I would. I know actually for sure I would not have done that trade. I would not have offered that, and I'm kind of jealous the Hawks ended up with it, because I think the Hawks could end up with like a Darren Peterson or one of the Boozers next year. Like that would be a wild situation. It'd basically kind of be like what happened with Boston in the Nets pick. So yeah, actually Toronto and New Orleans were my other teams that I was going to pick as well. So great minds think alike, Ryan. Great minds think alike on those five.
There it is. And Jeremiah Fears, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones. I like the young core here with these guys. There's something there with those guys. Fun players. I'm not going to be the one to say trade Zion, because I'm still a huge believer that Zion is even underrated. He gets more double teams than any player in the NBA since he's been drafted. Untouchable in terms of trying to stop Zion. So it's a tough question of what you do. I think Queen is kind of the heir apparent to Zion. I think they have a lot of young talent that impresses me most. I think rebuilding around them is the best plan, and then they trade their pick next year. So it looks like we're going to compete. It looks like we're going for the playoffs. I don't know what else you can do. So we're trying to win. So you better figure it out there, New Orleans. And man, Atlanta with man, they might get Cam Boozer next to Trae Young. I didn't even put 2 and 2 together, I guess, until you said that. That's scary. That's scary. But man, was that all the confusing teams you got here, Kris?
Yeah, I think that's basically we covered all the ones that I had on my list. The East is going to be a bloodbath of mediocrity this year, and it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. And the West is going to be just a usual bloodbath. But I think your Magic, I think are going to end up top three in the conference,
I like
potentially.
It. I mean, the Magic might be the least confusing. Like we know what we're getting out here with the Magic. We're here to draw fouls, play defense, and Desmond Bane's going to hit some threes, right? Right. That's what we heard.
I'm excited. Desmond Bane's going to be awesome for you guys. So, yeah, we'll see how it shakes out. I think Cleveland is probably going to be my pick to be the best team in the conference by record, at least next year. And there's like 4 teams in the East that I just have no idea, and those are Indiana, Boston, Milwaukee, and what was the other one? And Philadelphia. Like they could be 5th, they could be 12th, and nothing would surprise me. They're kind of these weird teams in transition. You got your tanking teams, then you got your contenders. It's going to be a really interesting year. I'm very excited to watch. Even if the Bulls are going to be mediocre this year, hopefully it'll be a fun brand of mediocrity.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Bulls are league pass tested. Like that's what we learned most after that Levine run is that people like watching Giddey and Kobe White getting buckets. That's one of the reasons he's back. Is like people had fun watching this team for a little bit, right? I mean, something, right? A little bit of fun, enough to bring them back. It seems like so. Bulls fans, maybe the same amount of optimistic, maybe a little more optimism than normal now that you got your picks back. You got a few young guys to root for potential. You kind of know who you are, and we get to watch some basketball. They'll be competitive, a fun style of play. And who knows, the East really is wide open. You get lucky, you win a couple of games, you're in the mix. So I'm excited to see how that plays out. We answered and found the 5 most confusing NBA teams and learned a bit about Swish Theory, and maybe we figured something out with Kawhi. We'll see how that turns out. But thanks for taking the time today, Kris. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, maybe the Bulls pick up Kawhi off the waiver wire after the Clippers.
There it is.
Contract. So we'll have Kawhi and then the next Kawhi, Patrick Williams, on the same team. That'll be amazing. Yeah,
hey, I mean, he could walk right into an open Eastern Conference, Kawhi. You gotta think about that. you got the rest figured out. Add it up. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for taking the time, Kris. It's been a lot of fun. Have a good one.
Thanks.
Learning Basketball is a Swish Theory podcast hosted from Beyond the Arcade. Hey, that's me. You can find my work on Twitter, YouTube, Substack, and check out the team's writing at theswishtheory.com.